Hey, hi, how are you? My name's Phil. Welcome back to some Deadlock. I'm going to be doing a kind of short, informative video that I think will help out new players, as it seems like this new patch has brought back a lot of new players. I'm going to talk about investment into stats. Now, what does that mean? As you can see down here, as you hover over any of these three bars in the bottom left, it says weapon investment, weapon damage increases. So as you can see, there are numbers on the right and percentiles on the left for this one. The number on the right is how many souls you have spent. So for example, if I go and I just buy a bunch of stuff for souls, for graves here, I have now hit maximum investment, which is at 28k souls. I get 135% weapon damage. Sounds pretty good, right? Sounds like a pretty solid reward for investing into a statistic. The same exact thing applies when it comes to vitality. At max vitality, hold please, I always forget the numbers and they're hard for me to read, so I always have to do it this way. At 28k, 28.8k again, you get 1400 just flat health. And then Spirit has a pretty similar thing going on as well, where at 28.8k, you get an extra 101 Spirit power. Now that none of these numbers have anything to do with your actual statistics in terms of you still have base spirit that your character will have, like for example, the 38 base spirit that Graves had. You'll still have whatever base increases your character has, which isn't that much usually. Usually it's only like a tiny bit of health regen, and Graves is a funny example. They actually have weapon lifesteal by default. But you still have those base statistics, and they still count towards all of your abilities. It's just that spending money on the stat that your character does well in gives you more dividends. So now a term you may have heard thrown around a lot is the 4.8k spike. At 4,800 souls in a stat, you get a spike. Now, what does that even mean? It means that after you invest 4.8k souls into a statistic, you get the largest jump in overall value for your souls spent. For example, in weapon investment, you go from getting 20% extra weapon damage at 3.2 to 49% at 4.8k. That's a 29% increase. That's a lot. It'll add up really fast when you combine it with how items work in the game. And the same can apply to your health. The vitality investment increases your health and its maximum value. And going from 3.2 to 4.8k takes you from 275 to 525. And the similar things happen for Spirit, as I'm sure you will be able to figure out from the pattern here. You go from 19 extra Spirit power to 38 extra Spirit power. And you might think that Spirit sounds not great, but then you have to think about the fact that some of the best Spirit items, like Boundless Spirit, give a percent increase and then 35 flat Spirit. Because of how Spirit scaling works in this game, flat numbers for Spirit is a lot more than you would possibly think. Now you might be asking why that matters, why that sounds like not even a huge upgrade, like you going from what, 19 to 38, how big of a difference does that make? Well, for example, on Graves, you throw your thing and your skulls are dealing, what, 51 to 52 per hit here? So that's at our 3.2k investment, our 3,200 investment. Let's say just buying something that all it does is none of these things apply until I do the jump, so all this does is just give me the investment. I throw it, and they go from that number to a decently higher number of 58 per hit. Going from, what, 51s and 52s to 58s to 60s on these hits? I swear I saw a 60 in there, but I could be blind. But you get what I'm saying. That small investment of just going, all right, I'm just going to make sure I spend that extra 1,600 souls into Spirit will really add up, and the same can be said for all of your other stats. It's really noticeable on the Vitality spike, because going from having 275 bonus health to 525 is pretty large. Weapon damage feels a bit more anomalous in my opinion, in that it's hard to feel the difference, but you can look at the exact numbers on Graves, for example. It was doing, what, 11 to 13 there? That was with escalating, giving a little bit of weapon damage, but at base it's doing like 6, 7. I know. Don't even come at me. That is something that absolutely matters a lot, though, when it comes to characters. Certain characters, like I said, Graves is a great example. Graves likes kind of dipping into all the stats. Other characters that really enjoy dipping into multiple stats include characters like Billy. Billy loves to have extra scaling for all of his abilities, but also make sure that they're tanky and their guns doing damage as they're running around, right? Hayes, believe it or not, also likes to have a good portion of Spirit in their build, because as you can see here, you get ammo based on your spirit power. So, assuming you just buy your spirit spike, which I usually get silence wave, bullet resist shredder, I went up to 45 bullets from 25-26, and that's just from a spirit investment. Lots of characters have different abilities like this that'll add up. And you also have characters like Geist who just have a pretty good gun, and so as a result, your builds will more often than not try and make sure that you're hitting your investment thresholds for it. And even if you're looking at a build like this, which kind of does the opposite thing, you just want to hit your base threshold for your spirit, because that means that you have that extra 38 power. Even when you're just building bullet resist, shredder, and radiant regen, neither of which have spirit power, it still adds to that 1.2x scaling on essence bomb, for example. Getting up to 38 power from a base of not much is a pretty big difference for certain characters. Not every character actually cares about having all the stats, though. For example, Calico, it's a character that more often than not my builds will look something like. Hold please as I buy a bunch of items. My builds will typically look something like this at endgame, around the 50k mark, where it's all green and purple. And that's just because of how Calico's kit works. Very little in this kit actually scales gun damage, and so as a result, you'd much rather just be able to jump in and do tons of damage this way, and just really focus on getting to that max spirit investment faster. It's not the same thing as a character like I was talking about earlier, with Haze, where yes, the spirit scales the magazine on her weapon, which is incredibly strong, but you also don't desperately need the ability to make her weapon have more base weapon damage as fast as possible. Because of the way the fixation works, you would rather just be able to shoot faster because you get damage stacking on this ability. As you can see by the way that it's going up into the 30s and 40s, real dang quick there. There's tons of arguments for all sorts of different ways to build characters, but something important to know is that learning how to use your investment stages and learning what characters to spike which stat faster can be a really big difference. Spiking green's usually not the greatest thing in the world on a lot of characters, but there's tons of arguments to be made for it. A Billy or an Abrams in lane against two hyper carries that are trying to poke him out as fast as possible will often have a really easy time if they just get that extra 500 something base health from your vitality investment. But that'll be doing this video, just short, just wanted to talk about investment stuff because it's something that it's a mistake I see a lot of people make where they just won't finish their investment tiers. For a hilarious example, the number of times I'll see a Mina and their build will look almost exactly like this, where all they have is stamina mastery. They don't ever get that extra 250 health, which on a character like Mina, at max level, going from 2060 to even buying an item like, say, Enchanter's Emblem, which doesn't even apply health, from that 2060 to 2310, it's a pretty big difference, and that's not even counting if you buy items that actually have health on them, which they're getting to be more and more, funny enough. But that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. You're cool and I appreciate you, and I hope to catch you in the next one.